Good day, fellow adventurers. My friends, you matter. To me, to those around you, I cannot tell you the joy you bring me every time I get a like, a subscription, or just a view. You bring happiness to the world. Thank you. Come on in. So glad to have you back. The door to the armory is open, just in case. Welcome to Dresden's Tale, episode 63. This is season 3, volume 3, chapter 59 in our tale of fantasy warfare. This is the sort of story that needs heroes. Ours is Dresden Fane. He's pretty good with a hammer, but doesn't know quack about women. Then again, neither do I. He's a warrior of the Stone Clan, boldly going where pretty much every fantasy character has gone before. I'm Lewis Nichols, your ray of positivity, your silver lining. Consider me a breeze on a hot sunny day, etc., and so forth. In case you missed it, I'm the guy who wrote this crazy thing. It's a project spanning 2 decades and a whole cartload of Word documents. Thanks to you two, I now have a reasonable way to pass it on to you. You know, it's only been a few hours since the big battle. If you missed it, you could go back and listen to the previous episode. Or you could just jump in here. You might as well learn now. We're not real big on plots around here. You haven't missed much. This is kind of a long one, so you might want to grab a bag of popcorn and a drink. We're back in the town of Pearl. It's Rudy's 26th day, 2,052 years after the fall. Dresden fell asleep with an uneasy feeling. Despite the victory, there was trouble. His trouble. He'd done something to offend Kira. She played it off as exhaustion, and that would have made sense. But something about it came across as more of an excuse than a reason. It was the first time they'd fallen asleep without a roll, exhausted or not. The only good thing about it, they really were worn down from the hard day. The emotional toll of the battle, the physical, it hadn't been a simple wake up, have breakfast, and fight. It was hours of maneuver and preparation under the hot Vool suns. The whole time realizing you were going into a battle against some of the deadliest beings in existence. For a dragon to kill someone like Dresden or Kira was barely an afterthought. As Kira put it, they might as well have been ants. The worry and fear was every bit the burden as actually swinging a hammer. Despite his brewing crisis, he fell asleep easily. Maybe he'd wake up to find it was all just in his head. What? Dresden was still groggy, unsure of what time it was. He sat up. Kira was red-eyed and flustered. I said I'm leaving. But why? Whatever I did, I'll make it up. It's not you. I can't be Stone Clan. She had a pack in her hand, half stuffed with her things. A sock fell out as she turned. Then she turned again. Stuffing a hard shoe into the bag, she yelped. Something had stuck her. But when Dresden reached out, she snarled. He was tempted to help her, but he didn't want her to go. I don't understand. You complain too much. You know that? You complain and criticize and judge, but you're a Stone Clan all through and through. I should have expected it. I've gotten better about the complaining. He was pretty sure he'd at least gotten better about it when she was in earshot. He tried to remember what he might have said after the battle. We were both tired last night. I thought I could count on you. Stupid me. I was terrified out there yesterday, and all you... She blushed and started for the tent flap. All I what? She turned and threw her pack at him. You just wanted to be with her. You and Liz. You and Liz. Always you and Liz. I might as well have been one of the Eliki for all you paid attention to me. But Liz... Sweet Nev, you fought hand in hand with her. Liz, I was there with all of you. We're a team, all of us, especially you and me. She's a minotaur, Kira. I don't want to be with her. Well, you were with her. Her voice dropped to a simple yell. She crossed her arms and tapped her foot. Everybody just talks about how pretty she is, and you're so close all the time. I can't compete with that. She went on, but Dresden had a hard time understanding the rest. All he could think to do was put his arms around her. She pushed him away. That's the worst part. You don't even realize. Just never do that to me again. He still wasn't sure exactly what he had done, but nodded in agreement. I'm sorry. She moved back to him and returned his hug. I really didn't think I was going to survive yesterday. I've never been so scared. I didn't even sleep last night, just nightmares. Not that you know what that's like. She separated and looked at him. You know you're still naked. He still wasn't sure what time it was. Light bore through the tent fabric all day, every day. You couldn't get away from it. It did feel early. They'd been told they could sleep in and recover, but he hadn't really planned to anyway. Surviving a fight like that is never certain. While he got ready, she tried to put some of her things back in order. I've never been in a fight like that. Dresden hadn't either, but he didn't think it was a good time to admit it. Yeah, we're taught about historic battles when we're young. The militia of Biona does it. You think about one side winning and the other losing. You want to think the losers are all killed. We learn that's not that way, though. Even when the questers fought 300 gnolls at the entrance of Patronsburg, less than 100 dogfaces were actually killed, and that was a rout. Sometimes the winning side actually loses more warriors than the winners. You know so much. It's hard to believe you're still young. It's just what I've been taught. No, it's more than that. Come on, I'll try not to freak out again today. No promises, though. She gave him a silly smile that made him regret putting his clothes on. It was hours before the camp was awake and ready for business. Dresden and Kira went out to see the rumblers before breakfast, then spent some time at the quarry. Mott was one of the original questers, part of a group that first formed the Stone Clan and moved us to the abandoned city of Parnsilia. Mott had been raised from the dead in secret. According to my papa, he had some remaining purpose to fill. Thing is, he became corrupt, and greed consumed him. When his time was done, he did not surrender himself, but sought to go on despite his ancient appearance. The city became cursed. Finally, Chief Buck exiled him to Manelia. Kira put down her hammer and sighed. But some of your clan still sides with him. Ah, some do. I don't understand why, but you're right, they do. And Buck, that's such a weird name. Should we get going? Dresden led her up from the stone pit. It's not really Buck. That's just what people call him. Chief Ted Stonefoot is his real name, but I think he picked up the family name after becoming chief. And he uses a bow. I thought there were rules against that, too. Not that I care. Half the warriors from my home village use a bow. It's just everybody around here thinks it's such a big deal, but there's Mott and now Buck. He led her to the meeting hall, though she had to guide him to a seat. Papa says that it fell on him to become chief because he was a quester. It gives the clan a sense of stability. If it wasn't him, it would have been that gnome, Flapper, or even Pink Eye. Pink Eye and Flapper. Never mind. Buck is a perfectly fine name. He started to answer, but she hushed him and made him pay attention to the front of the room. Yesterday's battle was the decisive victory we wanted, Lenny told his team. He paused, as if expecting a reaction, but none came. Well, we're all tired after fighting in the heat. However, there's still work to be done. So I hope everyone is ready to stick together for a few more weeks, or however long it takes. General Maxine is redeploying, leaving the remaining work to us and other small teams. There's no dragons. Rogandra has moved on, and I'm assured the Itarian's air dragon is also gone. Something about an agreement between beings greater than us. The Stone Clanny Leaky are gone too, already on the road to Brave Rock. If you stay, there'll be better supplies and a housing upgrade as the other groups leave. There's still going to be a big supply base here, so we'll get a few perks on top of it. Finally, for your participation, there will be some more direct benefits. I have a few things to give out. Tats for the battle and campaign have been approved, and your houses will be credited in the proper manners. Other than that, I'm not keeping you. You all did great, and I'm proud to have fought beside you. So, sir, Commander, sir, I have a question, a female Tagara interrupted. Dresden thought he recognized her from the battle. I guess there isn't going to be a debrief, but I just wanted to know. Lenny seemed to accept the fact the meeting wasn't going to be as short as he had hoped. Yes. Shouldn't a team assigned to guard a flank remain in place rather than pursue their own glory? That bitch! Kira started, but Liz stood up from across the room. The Minotaur bellowed. I told you last night I'd be willing to have a personal discussion about doctrine any time you're ready. This is Cormac's doing, Kira told Dresden. The cat's right next to him. She stood up and jeered. You can't be an effective fighting team hiding from a fight. There were a few whistles and shouts directed at the three standing women. Lenny just held up his hands for silence. Dresden could make out 6'6" Cormac trying to melt into the floor. The commander had to yell over the Tagara as she turned back to Liz, but Liz was louder. A warrior on the battlefield makes decisions. To question them afterwards is useless. That's the way it has to be. Then how do we get better? Cormac couldn't stay quiet. If we never study our mistakes and victory, we're doomed to fail. There's no right answer, Lenny told him. I know that we all want a set of rules to live by, but even the doctrine itself is just a starting point. So it's all just supposed to be instinct? Cormac shot back. And experience, Lenny told him. I'd even say some people just have a feel for it. Or maybe they're blessed a little bit with that voice that tells them the right direction to jump. I don't know. When I saw your troop wasn't on my flank, I was a little pissed off. I admit it. Then I saw you all being useful. And I knew it was going to be okay. In this case, it didn't matter anyway. Everything we did yesterday, it was meaningless. The right half of the line won it for us. Not to be overdramatic, but Stonehands drew forth the power of Omidon. He caught their air dragon in an earthen claw, holding it for just long enough to let our big guy get a clear advantage. You can bet it was some other squad of pissants that let that happen. And it's a coin flip whether they did it by following the doctrine or just doing what felt right at the moment. With that, the meeting was over, and Dresden suddenly felt like a rope in a tug-of-war. Well, it's nice to be told we don't matter, Kira said just before he was grabbed by an executor and made to choose potions. And a Quirda with a quill and a pad was saying something about it was not a payout, but he earned them instead. It was hard to decide, with everyone around him arguing. He didn't know the right answer, but Liz, Ralph, and Cormac all stood by waiting for a piece of him next. He's mine, and you had him yesterday, he could hear Kira threaten. Sorry, ladies. Dresden, come with me. Priestess Kimmy appeared out of nowhere and grabbed him by the arm. He tried to make eye contact with Kira, but was being ushered out too quickly. The priestess was not forthcoming with the reason why. Was he being rescued or prosecuted? She spoke in riddles about a great opportunity and how he would thank her later. Then she pushed him into her sitting room, sat him down, and left. There were a few others in the room, more than 5, less than 10. The one who drew his attention was an old Monkey sitting on Kimmy's desk. He was clearly a warrior, though his main adversary was time, and it looked like the ape-man was losing. When I was a kid, it was all shield and spear. Long spears and full-body shields, not these little short sticks and the plates with handles you kids use now. Things were different back then, more different than you could imagine. Long spears, they wouldn't work very well these days at all. And the shields, they wouldn't be mobile enough. That's the thing, right? What you invest your precious time in, and training, it might all go bust. I am supposed to give you some advice to help you avoid that. You're going to want to be unique, to stand out. That's where you're going to screw up. There's a reason half clansmen fight with a shield in one hand and some simple, reasonable weapon in the other. It was the old patron's waltz. That's what we called it. The block and the strike, if you like. Short spears are good. So are broadswords and maces. You can get by with hammers, conservative flails, and curved blades. The first thing, the first thing you'll have to decide is between what they call a warfighter and a monster hunter. If you're hunting wyverns, higher undead, logathon, some of the other scary critters, you're going to have to do it as a team. And if you want to be remembered, you'll be the balls of it. It might take an executor to run it and a sage to find it. And it might be a bard that tells everybody about it. But that Fancy Donald is just going to be talking about the guy up there chopping off the meaty bits. If that's you, you might think about a shield and, whatever, or you might go big. If you're strong enough, the great weapons can make a fight short, and that's pretty good. You get in, you get out, because a long fight favors the demon or whatever it might be. Most of you won't be monster hunters. That doesn't mean you won't have to do it from time to time, but that's not what you're going to make your life about. The ones who do tend to be a little glory bound for my taste anyway. The clans don't need you to search every cave and cranny for treasure. We've got real enemies to worry about. That brings us to warfighters. This thing you did the other day, I don't count that. Karsai Trajan might as well have been a big bug hunt. Battles are getting bigger. And since you're here, you're seeing them. Bigger might not necessarily mean longer, but it means more demands and you hero types. You have to think about that. 50 years ago, a scuffle with dog faces was an all-day event. Most of it, you stood there, but you still had to be ready for anything. The waltz is good for it. Horned crush is also viable, if you got the raw strength. It's better for Minotaur, not bad for a Saurian. A buff Tagar or Ronnie Ying can get away with it. It's focused on a hefty weapon like the Bishop's Blade or a great weapon, with some allowance for one's natural gifts, your horns, your tails mostly. As a warfighter, you can go all in on that and become a brawler. Plenty of Minotaur do it, but if you get in a cave trying to fight shadows or a demon, you're just pretty much there to get beat on. Horned Crush makes you more of a generalist, and that's alright. Same thing for slop fighting. They're just about the same training regiment. Don't tell the Horned Crush guy that. Slops tend to use their generalization for bows and nets, and it's pretty good if you just got to tackle somebody. Monster hunters aren't much for subdual, just killing. That's about it, really. Just don't think you're going to be the one that brings net fighting back into style. You're just wasting your time. Don't get lured into thinking a sword in either hand is going to make you some death and reincarnate. There's some legends that do it, but one of the blades is pretty well just for parry, so you might as well use a shield. Don't try to be another pink eye either. Some monkey get into the dagger hurling business because they think they can get up in the trees and fire down. They call it the darting dervish. It's nutty. I can tell you, that sickly prince is fueled by potions and a staff of lackeys to keep him armed. The old man looked at his notes and read one he missed. Don't do catapults. Yeah, if you haven't seen them, you will. They're coming back into use these days. Don't think you're going to be some innovative genius and make one your weapon of choice. Although, if you're a generalist, it might be to your advantage. Never thought about that, really. What else? No pikes, no halberds, and for fuck's sake, no lances. Now, if you're a warden or a priest, warlock, or otherwise heavy into some other training, I strongly suggest you go to one extreme or the other with your weapons training. Either just pick one weapon, Go all in so you can at least be effective in a fight. Or don't worry about always being effective and just be ready for any niche any niche requirements that might come up. It's a full generalized fighting style, and you can get away with it because you're mostly relying on all that other stuff you're training in. Maybe you'll actually save the day when a net has to be thrown or some clutch crossbow shot has to be made. Yeah, but probably not. There's a part 2 to this lecture. None of you are ready for it. It'll just confuse you. Hours later, Kira finally got her wish. They were soaking in a warm bathtub, no light except a few harsh rays showing through little gaps in the wooden walls. What else did he say? Nothing. He was done. He just up and left. Did you thank Kimmy? Dresden nodded. It's just you've been talking about your weapons choices. I guess she knew where you were in your training. No more dual short swords, I guess. She laughed lightly and snuggled closer. I guess not. I think he was right about that, but he didn't mention magic at all, except to acknowledge warlocks existed. That's too bad. Well, yeah, but maybe not. I'm mostly a shield guy that can pocket space. That, and we didn't have Ziblich when he was fighting. She sloshed around to straddle him, kissing his lips with a harsh enthusiasm. I know I'm hard to be with, she told him, but I completely idolize you. It's just the victory was a really good moment, and I wanted to share it with you. I know that's silly. Even if something permanent comes of this, us, it'll never just be you and me. You're important, Dresden. There'll always be other women. That's not what I want. I know you say that, but you're Stone Clan. There are expectations, and believe me, I know what it's like to be around people who expect things to be a certain way. All I'm saying is, I'm willing to try. Exposition to the left. Exposition to the right. Hey guys, just checking in. Everybody okay out there? Why do I do this to you? To myself, for that matter. Well, I'll tell you this. The big thing that RPG fiction has always been afraid to take on is leveling up. One day, you're a little peon. You could be squeezed to death by your average everyday python. A few years later, you're laughing it up in the angry grasp of a dragon's claw. It's willful blindness. The characters don't have a pretty good grasp of the rules they live under. Did I mention I'm okay with willful blindness? Just to a slightly lesser degree than most other fantasy creators. Characters know they've leveled up, they're just not going to talk about their new health scores and how they'll spend their 8 new skill points. Actually, if I ever thought about rebuilding and re-releasing Pelakar, the game system that is, I might just go with micro-leveling. It would be very easy to break down those power spikes into much smaller, more manageable increments. So what's the point of all this? I'm sorry if it disturbs your immersion, but characters of Dresden's Tale, they're going to be a little bit more self-aware than your average adventurer. And I've lost you. Alright, let's do the stuff. Chant with me. What do we do? Hit like. What do we do? You comment. What do we do? Subscribe. Visit my fiction on Amazon for Kindle. And while you're at it, have a great day, because you deserve it. See you next time. Cheers.